for everybody. So we're going to talk about interning successfully. We're going to talk about thinking from the supervisor's position, talk a little bit about professionalism, building work relationships, leaving in good order, how to register if you haven't already, and the academic requirements that are going to go on there. So if you were the intern supervisor in your office, what would you do to prepare for their arrival? This is the interactive part. Any ideas?
Maybe one of the first things would just be kind of what sort of projects do you need help on, someone to a little extra labor on.
Yeah, good. Any other?
To build on what he said, once you know what you want them to be doing, you need to know what kind of infrastructure you need to have in place for them to be able to do it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you need to teach them about that infrastructure?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. What do you hope they already know?
Like about your company, so like what your values are, what your standards are, your vision, your goal. You hope they've done a little bit of research, and you also hope they know like basic skills like how to get to work on time and how to log hours and stuff like that.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. What would be your expectations that you won't have to cover in the orientation of incoming interns? Some of it might be what you just mentioned, work ethic, but what other things might an intern supervisor assume?
Maybe basic writing and communication skills.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Certainly, basic computer skills, normal things like that. There might be a number of different things. Hopefully, they've thought through some of these things and are putting it together in the orientation. 3 weeks into the internship, you're the supervisor. What do you want to see in each intern?
That they're improving in some way in their job.
Beginning to understand the ropes. Yes.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to tell them what to do anymore. They should know what to do by themselves.
Yeah, to some extent. There's always going to be some supervision. But yeah, you're right. Progress. Absolutely. What do you want to see in the team if there's a team of interns, or even if there's an intern working on a team?
That they're getting.
Say that again?
That they are getting along.
Yeah, certainly that they're getting along. What else?
That they're productive as a team and not less productive than an individual.
Yeah, good. Hopefully the sum of the parts is more than just an addition, that they're working well. They understand what each other's roles are, what it takes to get things done, who needs to get what information first, when to check in with the supervisor, how to move the project down the road, whatever that might be. Yeah, that's good. You're the supervisor. How do you want to see your time divided between supervision and your work projects?
You probably don't want to spend all your time supervising interns. You have other things to do as well. Right.
Yeah, hopefully there should be kind of a progressive where you're able to spend more time on the work project than supervising the intern. There's always going to be some supervision, but hopefully that they're picking up on what to do. Interactions become more regular, scheduled, that kind of thing. But at the beginning, it's normal for the interns to have more questions and more interaction with the supervisor. Is there anybody here who's had a internship before?
Yeah, I have.
I have.
I have.
Yeah.
Good.
I have.
Yeah, I
Yes.
thought there might be some intern veterans on here. What do you wish you knew going into your first internship?
I wish I had known a lot more about the company.
And how would you have found out more about the company?
Basic research. Talking to other people about it.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Research online, talk to people. Good. Somebody else, anything you wish you knew going into your first internship?
I wish I had asked myself like more like deeper questions about how I wanted to match my work to the goals of kind of the company, I suppose.
Good.
Um,
Yes.
just to think deeper about it, and instead of just getting the assignment done or the work, I just wanted to to think harder about it so that I could actually
Yeah. No, that's good. Another thing that you might want to do along with, thinking more deeply about the work, but also what are your goals and objectives for the internship ahead of time? Do you want to meet some people? Do you want to develop a skill? Do you want to test drive a vocation? All kinds of different things. Think through what your objectives might be, because if you know them ahead of time, then you can put goals in your internship to move it down the road. Any other ideas on what you wish you knew going into your first internship? Well, what helped in developing relationships on your internship?
Asking questions, especially of other interns, just getting to know them better.
Yeah. A little personal curiosity. Yeah, that's very good. Anybody else? What got the most bang for your buck on the internship? In other words, what thing did you do that didn't necessarily take a huge amount of effort, but actually yielded something fruitful on the internship?
I would say networking was really big for me. My internship didn't pay a lot, but I got a lot of letters of reference from senators and people who actually mattered.
And how did you manage that?
So when I interned, I didn't intern for a specific office. I interned for a committee, and so I had access to a lot of like cross-department communication. So I networked with other internship coordinators and aides, and just talk to people in lunchrooms, hallways.
Great. Anybody else in terms of what got the most bang for their buck in the internship?
I feel like on a micro level, anytime I took initiative and started, doing something or started a project, whatever, did things without being asked, or did things that the supervisor hadn't necessarily thought of, that improves your perception in the eyes of your supervisor, improves your later letter of recommendation, quality of the connection, everything like that.
Right. And the number one comment from supervisors on great interns, and you've heard a little bit here already, is be proactive. One intern strategized how to best complete their tedious work on their internship as fast as possible so that they could work on more substantive projects and get to know some of the senior staff on their projects. And it was a little challenging for the supervisor. I found out on the site visit in terms of, they said, yeah, he goes through it so quickly, I have to figure out what's the next thing to do for him, and I have to have a stack of projects to work up for him to work on. But he did this, and he actually accomplished a lot of his objectives on that. But he was very careful to make sure he did it well, quickly and well. The 5 top most important qualities that research statistically has brought back is the ability to work on a team, a strong work ethic, initiative, so we're back to being proactive again, flexibility and adaptability, and problem-solving skills, which problem-solving skills are also part of being proactive. So if you complete a project and know of another one to do it, asking before if necessary, if you're left without a task, use your time productively, think well about the environment, which do your best to understand the office, its purpose and priorities. We already talked a little bit about doing research on the office, understanding as much as you can, so that when you go in, when they tell you something, it'll be able to connect to other things that you already know. Professionalism. This is my definition, and strive to be the best benefit to the office and client relationships with the purpose of the office as your purpose. Accomplishing any purpose requires how to think how best it's accomplished. And working as a group, each one choosing priorities, probably not the most efficient way. Working on a team requires us to make changes for the benefit of the team. Like the kingdom of God, work together as a body. The office has internal relationships. Some of you might be relating to external clients, not always. Those relationships are the primary purpose or the telos of the purpose of the office. And those relationships are really why you're doing oftentimes administrative tasks and that kind of thing, is so that people can help one another. And it's essentially part of how, in a work environment, we love our neighbor. Our advantage as believers is, when in doubt, fulfill all righteousness and love. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and prophets hang on this commandment. So if you can do that, you'll fill out everything else that you need to do. And I'm not talking about an affection, but thinking about how to serve people well with the right attitude and be a blessing to your coworkers. Now, on campus, you've never had the opportunity to learn how to love somebody you don't like, because everybody likes everybody at Patrick Henry College, right? But on the work, you might run into somebody who you don't like, or who doesn't like you for one reason or another. But we're able to love people regardless of their response. That's why I put in agape love, and serve them well. Time of interning is an opportunity to be faithful, available to the Lord, and teachable. Be in the world, not of it, but do be in the world. Serve, stay together, take a stand. Be a benefit to the office in which God has placed you. Jeremiah 29:7 says, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile, Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Start thinking about how does this particular vocation love and serve their neighbor. Stay together, find fellowship with other interns and staff. I'm guessing some of you are going to be working remotely this summer. So that's both a challenge and a solution, both to staying connected and staying in fellowship. You want to continue to be able to grow in your walk with the Lord, even in a work environment. Take a stand, don't compromise in important areas. A friend of mine was working in a law office, and one of the principals came in and passed a bill across her desk and said, go ahead and send this bill out again. And she looked at it and she said, well, we already sent this out, he already paid it. And the principal said, yeah, but they pay every bill that we send them, so go ahead and send it again. And she said, no, I won't do that. And the next week they called her into the partner's office, and she was thinking she was going to get fired. And they said that was a test, and we were giving her a promotion. So you never know, but don't compromise in important areas. Feel free to compromise in unimportant areas or small areas. Daniel is a great book for taking a look at how to work in secular environments, which probably not all of you are, but some of you certainly are. Secularism partially obscures truth, distorting reality. And office norms today are generally secular. You might think about, imagine if there was not a chair where you were at. How would that change your behavior? Jesus followers function well nonetheless in secular environments. Familiar verse, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Against such things there is no law. Supervisor evaluations often appear to be a secular description of a spirit-filled believer. Blessings of a PhD reputation, oftentimes, not always, as they might know of Patrick Henry College. The alumni that have gone before have worked well and done their best, resulting in an excellent reputation. There can also be challenges to a good reputation. A while back, I was on a site visit, and the site supervisor said to me, your alumni, this wasn't interns, it was alumni who were working in the building, have the foulest mouth of anybody in the building. And she said, your college isn't what you portray it to be. Really couldn't say anything. And I said, well, there's always a range. And so keep that in mind in terms of that you'll be spreading the reputation and building on what's gone before. So continue to build on an excellent foundation. Focus. This is really important and a very strong part of professionalism. I think Patrick Henry College students are good at this, but there's always room for improvement in this area. Solomon wrote, let your eyes look directly ahead. Let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. Watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. There can be some culture stress going into any new environment, even a really good environment. And there's a natural tendency to want to retreat into something familiar, Facebook or, your phone or something like that. Resist that temptation. Use good judgment. Working on being part of the team. Actively listen, not just when someone's talking to you, but kind of keep an ear out of what's going on in the office. Think about what you're doing and how it fits into the larger picture of the organization. You might run across something that's not an assignment, but you overheard something or knew that would be helpful for somebody that you can pass along to somebody. Turn your personal cell phone off during work hours. No personal or instant messaging. It's fine during breaks. Do Do your best to track with areas that are related to your responsibilities. You can set up a Google feed specifically about the area that you're working on during your internship. So you have kind of develop an ambient knowledge of what's going on, not only where you work, but for the purposes that your organization is there. If you're working at a museum, you could say, okay, I'm going to set up a feed for any archaeological finds in American history, you know, if that's relevant. Or you could say news items that pertain to cybersecurity, or, you know, whatever area that you're in. And you don't have to read everyone. You can kind of skim the headlines and see if there's anything relevant. But that's part of developing competency, of which there are stages. Organizations and agencies, businesses are in competition, even nonprofits. And if they're not competent, those who are will win the competition, and the purpose of the office will have failed. So the different stages, and they're kind of common sense, but we oftentimes don't think about them. Unconsciously incompetent. We don't know what we don't know. When you go into the office, even doing research in that, there's just going to be things that you don't know, that you're going to have to learn. Some you'll learn on the first day, some you'll learn after a couple weeks, some after a couple months maybe. And that's normal. The uncomfortable part is the consciously incompetent stage, is when you find out, oh, you know, I did that wrong, you know, or the boss comes back and says, gee, you know, this isn't the way we do this, we do it this way. They're just kind of standard operation, something that they may have missed in orientation. That's normal. And then there's consciously competent. This guy here, if he isn't competent at what he's doing, he's probably not going to live through the day, right? He's developed some conscious competence. He knows how to do what he's doing. And then, surprisingly enough, there is unconsciously competent. You probably don't think about how to tie your shoes. Oftentimes, your intern supervisor will just be a few years ahead of you. That's actually a good thing, because they're remembering all of the things that they learned when you were coming into the operation. Sometimes it's tricky if the intern supervisor is the principal in the office and they're 50 years old and they have forgotten how they learned to do things that they just do out of reflex, just like a professional athlete doesn't think about how to shoot the basketball. He's got all the muscle memory built in. All he has to do is look and shoot. Communication, answer email and voicemail promptly. If volume is an issue, acknowledge the email and give a time frame for your reply, and reply sooner than that. Under promise and over deliver. It's a good general principle. Reply to emails with history. This is a rare problem. It does occur occasionally. I'll get an email saying, oh, yeah, sure, and I have no idea what they're talking about, you know, because I've gotten 150 emails today. Text only when texted to or requested to do so. That's not always a standard use in different organizations. Sometimes that's just used for personal purposes. So follow whatever the culture of the office is and figure out how to do that. When you're learning to do something, there's a good possibility that you might do something wrong. And so you're going to be criticized or corrected for it. Walk in the power of the Holy Spirit. Ask God to help you respond rightly. This is just part of having a good attitude. Deal with emotional and informational content differently. If the person's angry or frustrated, acknowledge if you had a role. If you didn't, ask what you might do to help. Know yourself. Do you shut down when you're corrected? Do you get defensive? All of that's normal, but not necessarily helpful. and thank the person for their input. Let them know the ways that you might apply it, so that, especially if your tendency is to shut down, you might not respond. Go ahead and respond. Say thank you. I really do want to do the job well. And if and if you did something that caused some frustration for them, say, apologize for frustrating you, and say, in the future I'll do X, Y, and Z instead of A, B, C. So give them a context there. Success with new groups. Oftentimes you're meeting new people. In this case, it might even be on Zoom if it's remote, which can be even trickier still. Prepare relevant questions. Have a standard set of questions that you can ask people about themselves generally and professionally. The goal is to get others talking about themselves. Then they'll think that you're a great conversationalist. And people generally like to talk about themselves. So that's a good way, because you get them talking, you all start learning about what they do, their job, how they do it, how they got there, where they went to school beforehand. I've got a standard slate of these that I have in my head when I go on a internship. And I often don't just ask about the internship. I often ask about their career path, so I can plow that into what I already know, and hopefully, give it back to the students on campus. So walk up to somebody if you're in a meeting, introduce yourself, ask those questions, don't hug the corners. And I oftentimes find that when I do this, that other people will come up, because it seems like a safe place to come and have a conversation if they don't know people there. And it's a good way to meet people. I'm a introvert. I get my energy from my time alone, but I'm perfectly okay expending it in that kind of environment to learn something. If your internship is remote, I'd like to get an idea of how many have a remote internship there. Here, I'm going to, just for fun, unmute everybody. Go ahead and tell me if you've got a remote internship this summer.
I do.
I do.
I do.
I have a remote internship.
Yeah. So several, anyway. Okay. So onboarding becomes more important even with a remote internship. If they've got a good onboarding process, pay attention, take notes if you can. This can be anywhere from 1 hour to a week. Oftentimes the first day is onboarding process, letting you know how things operate, what kind of tools they use, what the communication protocols are and frequency, what's expected there, work output, deadlines, HR standards, just all that kind of things. If they don't have a great onboarding process and it's just kind of minimal, think through information and categories that will help you succeed on your internship, and come up with a slate of questions, and ask 1 or 2 questions at your regular meetings until you get through them all. So in other words, figure out a way to do a strong way of onboarding yourself. Some of that you might be able to do through research, but if you ask around to different people, you might do double duty and develop those relationships as well. Because relationships are just as important working remotely, maybe even more so. So do the best you can to develop those relationships, because these might be folks who you can consult regarding your career as you get it launched as well. Along those lines, before you leave the internship, ask a question, is there anybody who you'd like to get more information from, that you can do a informational interview. And there's a variety of ways to do this, but the ideal target is probably somebody who is 5 years down the road in a job that you'd like to have. There may or may not be somebody like that on your site. But check around, see if there's somebody who, seems to have an interesting career path, and ask them if you could have 10 minutes of their time and come up with 10 minutes worth of questions. And ask them, what was the position you had before this? What's your long-term goals? What advice would you give to somebody who's interested in working in this field, who's just getting out of college? Come up with a slate of questions. The one question that you can't ask is, do you know of a job for me? Because that automatically makes the conversation manipulative. You're trying to get something out of it or get them to do something for you. But the thing is if they enjoy the conversation, they can't help but eventually think of, I wonder if I know a position for them down the road. And the other question that you can ask is, who else would be good for me to talk to about this? And the reason why you want to keep it to 10 minutes is that if you respect, everybody's very busy, but they usually can afford 10 minutes. And if you keep the time to 10 minutes, then it shows that you respect their time and that you will then respect their friends' time if they refer you to somebody else also. And if you do this, you can develop a network of people over time that are trying to find a job for you. It's a great way, just getting to know people. You also learn vocabulary that's used in the vocation, practices, relationships, organizations, just learn a lot of things ambiently doing this that then kind of relates your professionalism, because when you're interviewing for a job, or even when they look at your resume, the ideal response is, oh, they're one of us. They talk like us, they have experiences like us, they have interests like we do. And informational interviews are a great way to do those. And who else would be good for me to talk to is the last question that you ask. And if they give you somebody, no matter who it is, even if you think it's ridiculous, follow up within 1 week's time, because if you don't, once again, you're disrespecting their recommendation and you've just lost that person as a job reference. So follow up if you do that. Well, before I go on, are there any questions on any of that, or any comments or things that you would like to add or subtract from that before I go into registering?
Hey, Thornhill?
Yeah.
This isn't a content question so much, but would you be willing to send these slides to us so that we can review them as we're going into our internships?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll put something together. Yeah, sure. Any other questions? Okay, if you think of something, chime in. Real quickly, apprenticeship at Patrick Henry College is an umbrella term used for internships, practicums, and DRWs. Internship, what we're talking about here, is an educational experience supervised by an external organization or agency. Practicum is something very similar, but supervised by faculty. And then DRWs are writing projects of various sorts. So internships, and in all of these variable credit courses, we can have multiple students getting different amounts of credit, which raises suspicion with our accreditors. And so we so we have an approval process so that we can show them why students are getting different amounts of credit for the same course. So that's why the registration for variable credit courses is a little different. When you pre-register online, if you haven't yet, in the drop-down box include the credit hours that you're requesting. It's 40 hours per one credit hour, 40 work hours. You can only earn 1 credit max per week. This is to make sure that students aren't working 80 hours a week trying to get their internship done in a short amount of time and burning themselves out. We really can't be liable for you pressing the envelope. The title field, name the internship, put the name of the organization in there, and in the description field, put a short job description and information to support your requested credit hour amount. So if you're asking for 12 credit hours, then we're going to want to know if that's a full-time internship, because if it's not, you're not going to get that, or if it's part-time, accordingly, put the amount in there and a little bit of a job description, because that's the information that the faculty would look at to determine whether or not it's appropriate for your major. So and if it's insufficient, they might just ask you a question. And that's why we have the My Apprenticeship portal, which I'll talk about in a minute, is so if any negotiation needs to go on, everybody is looking at the same information. Each internship gets a separate registration if you're doing more than one. So, if you're a journalist and you're writing articles for 2 or 3 online sources, that might be an example. Or if you're, working 2 part-time internships, those would be 2 different registrations. Your registration is incomplete when you fill this out, but will appear on your schedule. Now, a number of you will have to actually fill out a registration update form because for one reason or another it won't let you do the online registration. Maybe it's during drop ad or something like that. So what happens is when you fill out a registration update and send it to the registrar, they go in and they open a record, but the record is blank. It doesn't have a title or description. So when they register you, I have to refresh the My Apprenticeships page, and you'll get a blank record, and you'll need to go in there and fill it out because we can't approve anything if it's not filled out. That record is kind of the contract for registration for internships. You have till the end of the drop ad period of the target semester to get the approvals. So for summer, I believe the drop ad period is May 18 through 22nd. Check the academic calendar though, just to be sure on that. And if you haven't registered yet and you're wondering, gee, can I get it registered in that time period? You definitely can, but we need to move along, fairly quickly with the requirements. You'll get a menu item on the left-hand side of your student portal when you register for a variable credit course called My Apprenticeships. And that's where we track the approval process. The faculty of record appears in the course listing here. It's Dr. Sillers. Me, I'm the apprenticeship program director. That's what the APD stands for. And then the registrar. Yellow means the approval is pending. Green with a check mark means approved. Red with an X means it's disapproved or canceled. And the approvals go, I can't approve until the faculty of record approves, and the registrar can't approve until I approve it. So that's how that goes. The plus minus opens and closes the record. Items needed for approval are listed in the notes field on the right-hand side there. And there's check boxes for either the survey or the syllabus or both. And only I can check off the check boxes. So, and I'll check that off when you send me the survey or the syllabus. I don't necessarily look at my email immediately. Like I said, sometimes I get hundreds of emails a day, and it takes me some time to catch up. So be patient. And oftentimes the faculty also will approve internships in batches. And so they might wait towards the end of the add drop period just to make all the students nervous. But they usually comes off without a problem. The faculty of record determines if the internship is academically relevant for your major. They may email if the description's insufficient. Credit hours for the internship may need to be adjusted for this process. And you can register, of course, for fewer credit hours than you're working. So if you've got a full-time internship, you only need 3 credit hours, that's fine. And you only need to do 3 credit hours worth of work, as it varies in the internship, which is in the syllabus. I need to know who your supervisor is and the contact information, host site address, and name, contact information of your direct supervisor. When the registrar finalizes the registration, the 3rd dot will turn green with a check mark, and your billing will be adjusted accordingly. At the end of the target semester drop add, your registration will be dropped if the registration is incomplete. There is a late internship registration. The form is on the forms page linked in your student portal. Restrictions are outlined in the late apprenticeship registration document on the forms page. Complete the late registration process prior to the first withdrawal deadline found in the academic calendar. So that's usually right in the middle of the semester there. And there's a late registration fine of $100. This summer, if you get an internship late, let us know. We might be able to waive that fine. We might have a process for that. The academic, if you do your internship and do a fantastic job of your internship, if you don't do the academic requirements, you'll flunk, and that would be bad. So these are, we're talking about the summative paper, which is due the last day of class. And even in the summer, there's a last day of class. Check the academic calendar. There's a supervisor evaluation. SI students, you'll provide the link to your supervisor for the online evaluation. For everybody but SI, there's an agreement form. Internships with security concerns can be adjusted to meet the site requirements. The Form A is an agreement, it's not a contract, so that's negotiable. The Facebook discussion group, or Form B, which is the internship journal, is done periodically every 40 hours of work or so. You want to fill that out. And it's important to do that as you go along, because it's shown in research that interns that ask questions of what they're doing and how they're doing it. So you're learning how to do the internship work, and that's exactly as it should be. You're also learning things about work relationships, teamwork as well, and asking those questions will raise your work IQ, if you will, and you'll perform better on your internship as a result. Form C is the summative paper norms for each group, so make sure you read that. And I'll probably do a site visit with your supervisor or a site call, depending on where it's located. And in the student portal, in the course area, there is a link for you to do an evaluation of your internship after it's all over. So do a little exploring in the course area when you get in there, and the syllabus will be in the course area. Journalism students will have a progress report meeting with the faculty of record, Dr. Sillers. And SI, sometimes site visits are done for SI internships if we're wanting to maintain a particular relationship there, just FYI. For SI students, the rest of you don't drift too far off. We'll be coming back shortly, so stay tuned. The first draft of the survey is your midterm. The final form is part of the closeout requirements. The work timesheets are also part of the closeout requirements. And check the syllabus for specific information. Requirements vary a little bit according to major and course, and even in some cases within the course. You're responsible to respond to email sent to your student email account in a timely fashion, just like on the job. So you're going to need to practice that kind of vigilance with your student email. We had one student did a 12-hour internship and didn't do any of the academic requirements, and we kept emailing him and trying to contact him, and he flunked 12 credit hours. So don't let that be you. That's a warning there. So pay attention to the emails, just in case there's something you don't know, and you're at that unconscious incompetence stage. All documents and hyperlinks will be in your course section in the student portal since there is no class. So since we can't pass out syllabi in class and we can't talk about this in a class environment, everything's in the student portal in the course area. So when you go in and say these are your courses, you'll be able to click on XYZ 470 and it'll open up, and all the documents will be in there in the hyperlinks. If you haven't done that to this point. The agreement form will be there, timesheet, Facebook group link for the Facebook internship group, weekly journals for Form B if you'd rather do that. The Facebook group, there are new questions every week. The journals, it's the same couple questions every week. Most students prefer the change up in questions, and they can interact with each other there as well. Complete them as you go, upload them to the Dropbox. There's Dropboxes in the course area as well. And use the naming convention that's on the form, because if you don't, when the faculty and I open up the document, for some reason it cuts off the name of the document after the first space, and so it can get confusing. This is what the course area looks like for documents in one example here. So here's Form C, B, timesheet, Form A. And there's also a summative paper description, evaluation hyperlinks. I will email out to your supervisors the link for your evaluation. Dropboxes, other resources might be there as well. It looks like this. InternCube is a site dedicated to interns. And so if you want to up your game, there's almost a huge amount of resources there. And some of them are pretty entertaining as well. There's a link there to join LinkedIn if you don't have a LinkedIn profile yet. And of course, the Facebook group and evaluation survey and other things. So know what your objectives are for your internship. Have a great attitude. Work and think well. Trust God. Use the discussion forum journal questions to help you reflect and mature through your internship. Know what's due and when it's due, just like the classroom. Final date is the last day of classes, not finals week. And if an extension is needed, ask the overseeing faculty. If you have any questions, contact me. Remember to enjoy this experiential learning experience. It's a hallmark of the Christian classical liberal arts education here at Patrick Henry College. And God bless you in your internship. Let's switch over here. And are there any questions?
I have a slightly detailed question about the DRWs. Can you do one of those with a professor who is not your advisor or necessarily in your major?
Yes, you can. You can have the faculty of record will be the faculty that is on the DRW. This is, and even in some cases, there are practicums like this as well. And then there can be a supervising faculty who will actually do all the supervision and all of that. And he will tell the faculty of record what the grade is. That has to be worked out beforehand, but it is possible to do that because, we've had students do physics projects, that were CLA, and so there's a different faculty overseeing that particular kind of writing project or curriculum project. So yes, you can do that. And if you have questions, feel free to set up an appointment with me and we can answer that. Any other questions? No? Okay, terrific. I hope you all have excellent internships. If you think of any questions, let me know, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. And I'll try and get something out to everybody who's on the call here. And have a excellent rest of your reading days. And we miss you guys. Wish you were all on campus. I hope in the fall, back to normal. Okay, we'll be in touch. I know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Darnell.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great seeing you guys.